All right, we are live and recording. Good evening, everybody. My name is Claire. I'm the event coordinator at Village Books. And before I introduce the person to my right or my left, I actually don't know which side of me she's on. I want to say a few words about Crowdcast. If you're hearing an echo, please try first turning down the volume of your computer. Second, make sure that you only have one tab open, one window. And third, if those two things don't work, put some headphones on, even just some earbuds. If one of those three things doesn't work, then I don't know what to tell you, and good luck. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a little button that says follow. If you click on that button, then you can see what Village Books has been up to with this virtual adventure that we're on. So I encourage you to do that so that you can see all the events that we have coming up, because we have a whole lot of events happening in our virtual readings gallery. Right there. And then also, let's see, and speaking of upcoming events, on Sunday at 4 o'clock, we are very excited to welcome Bellingham author Linda Morrow. She is going to be here talking about her first book, her memoir, Heart of This Family. This is a memoir about raising her kids, one of which, Steve, was born with Down syndrome, and it's about raising a child with Down syndrome, being a woman in the 70s and 80s and advocating for her son. It's a beautiful book. I encourage all of you to tune in at 4 o'clock this coming Sunday for Linda Morrow. She's going to be in conversation with another fabulous Bellingham author, Cami Ostman, which I know that a lot of you in the audience tonight are familiar with Cami. So, and the last thing I want to say is, if you look in the middle of the screen on the bottom, you see a green button that says Wa Mem Rimo Workshop Series. If you click on that link, it takes you straight to the Village Books web page, where we have featured all of the great classes that are happening this month for the Wa Mem Rimo, which I can never say unless I really think about it. And deliberately Rimo, Whatcom Memoir Writing Month. Katie, I hope that's right. Anyway, so this is a perfect time for me to turn this over to Katie Tier, who is our partner at Village Books. She's representing Whatcom Community College, and she has some words to say about the wonderful things that they do there. So take it away, Katie.
Thank you, Claire, and it's so good to be here with you all. I'll just speak briefly about the project and how this reading came to be, and a little bit also about the Chuckanut Writers Conference. So here at Whatcom Community College, we partner with Village Books to produce every year the Chuckanut Writers Conference, which is an annual event that takes place in June. And like so many organizations, this past June, we found ourselves pivoting from what is usually an in-person, action-packed, inspiring weekend to a week of virtual breakout sessions and master classes. And it actually turned out to be quite wonderful, even though we couldn't be together in person. And I feel that way about this reading too. I'm so excited to hear from our readers. So the Chuckanut Writers Conference with Village Books, when we heard about the People's Perspectives Project, which came about through the Whatcom County Library System as a way to archive our experiences as we get through this together as a community, as we navigate through an unprecedented pandemic, we just knew that we wanted writing to be part of it. And so we were overwhelmed with submissions. We received so many, and it was really, I think, Claire, it was a balm to read through them.
Yes.
And
yes, absolutely.
To hear about the varied experiences that people are having, their joys and their sorrows and their hopes and their fears, and even just small moments of beauty. And so we weren't able to hear from everybody tonight, but all of those submissions were actually sent to the People's Perspectives COVID-19 in Whatcom County project as part of this broader effort to archive our experiences through art and storytelling. And so these days, I really feel like our creative practices, our art, our storytelling, these are things that make us human, and they offer us opportunities to connect with one another and to make meaning from really difficult times. And so that's how this project and this reading came to be. Here at Chuckanut Writers Conference, we are still planning for our 2021 event. We are hopeful that it will be in person, vaccine and public health willing. But if not, we've got plenty of experience to draw upon from this year to produce what I'm sure would be an equally wonderful virtual event. So the dates for the 2021 conference are June 25th and 26th, and we are hopeful that you will be able to join us whether in person or virtually.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Katie.
And thanks to our readers. I mean, I've just been so looking forward to this evening.
Yes, it is going to, it's such an adventure navigating all of this, and everybody has been so cooperative working through the technical stuff, and so hopefully it's going to go smoothly tonight. I'm sure it will, but as we all know now, little things can happen, so we're just going to roll with whatever happens, and it's going to be great. So so Katie, I think you get to be in the audience now.
Terrific.
All right, I'm going to give you the heave-ho. Thank you. Okay, so our first reader this evening, her name, let me go ahead and invite her up onto the screen here. Her name is Maureen Kane. She is a licensed mental health counselor in private practice in Bellingham, specializing in stress, anxiety, life changes, illness, caregiving, trauma, and career. Wow, that's that's a big spectrum. Prior to being a therapist, Maureen was director or manager of social service agencies and corporations working in the areas of literacy, healthcare access, aging, homeless youth, and disability. Wow. She shares her home with her husband, who is someone who is frequently on this screen with me. He's my partner in crime at the open mic. I so appreciate all of his help with everything, Sean Dwyer. And a hairless cat. Huh. Sean and a hairless cat. So everybody, thunderous applause in your homes for Maureen Kane. Maureen actually has an image that goes along with her piece, and I'm going to bring that up right now.
Thank you. Claire, is this mic the good one? Can you hear okay?
You sound great.
Okay.
So let me just make myself, pardon me, folks, while I do a little, it's always a little bit of a do-si-do. Here we go. Okay, take it away, Maureen.
Okay. So I think Claire asked us to do a quick introduction about the writing, and then I'll read it. So as she said, I'm a therapist in town, and I happen to be going through the same thing as all my clients, which is kind of interesting. So I've been using writing as a way to try to make sense of our times and also remind myself of goodness and resilience so that I can stay good and resilient. And this picture of this fawn is the real star of this piece. That is actually my front porch. So this is called Peace in the Eye of the Storm. Last week, I woke to find a newborn fawn on my front doorstep. Really, its soft, downy form curled in a circle, breathing peacefully and trusting that mom will return to feed her. Her brown fur fluttering in the wind, the tiny white spots rise and fall with her breath. She's unafraid and resting in full trust. She may see, but does not understand the traffic cones placed on the sidewalk by a neighbor to keep people from bothering her, the sign made by another to redirect package deliveries to the garage, and the decision made by my husband to wait to mow the lawn until she's ready to move out on her own. She does not know when she suckles that the milk contains apples and pears left out for her mother. She does not know that her mother wanders to keep predators from finding her. In our backyard, a rare black squirrel swings from the bird feeder. It shares the food carefully curated to support our local avian guests. This pastoral scene all around me teaches me of innate trust, care, and grace. We humans may be recipients of it too, in ways that we will never see or understand, just as the fawn knows not what keeps her safe. Meanwhile, a pandemic continues to rage. Hoarding and choices about mask use spark fear and division and even violence. There are those who seek to escalate the division for their own gain. And yet, the helpless fawn trusts and is protected. She left our care yesterday, and tonight we watch a bunny bring grass and sticks one by one into her burrow to house her young. We text the neighbors, and we will once again watch over a little one the best we can. We humans, who pretend we're not helpless, could learn a lot from what mightiness one tiny life brings out in those around her through her innocence and trust. May all beings meet their innate greatness that rises to meet our vulnerability. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Maureen.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Okay. We appreciate your sharing that. So, all right. I will say goodbye to you. Everybody's clapping. There's, of course, feel free, everyone, to put comments in the chat. So thank you, Maureen. Okay. And our next, let me find our next reader. Our next reader, Linda Conroy, is a retired social worker who likes to write about the complexity of behaviors that make us human and to comment on the changing times. Her poetry has appeared in various journals and anthologies, and she is the author of the poetry collection Ordinary Signs. And Linda, I can't wait until we can have your event in the Readings Gallery. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, yes, here I am. This is my first time on this program, so it was a little anxious preparing for it, but here I am. I'm enthusiastic now. And yes, some of you know me from what we're calling at our house BC, before COVID, because then I was a host of writing groups, a poetry group and the prompts group at Village Books, and so I would see poets and writers and readers often, and I used to say Village Books was my home away from home, and my book is for sale up there. It's on the shelf at Village Books, but I haven't been in there in a long time. So, you know, this poem I'm going to read to you today, I was shocked when I looked up today. I thought, when did I write this poem? And I think it was right at the end of March, like maybe March the 26th or 27th. So we'd only been shut down at home, shut in, protecting ourselves at home for about 2 or 3 weeks. And it seemed like the longest time. My partner and I had not been out. We'd not been anywhere except wandering for walks in our neighborhood. And then the one day we thought, okay, this is the day we were going to go out, and we needed to go to the dump on Slater Road to take yard waste. And how exciting that was, because we hadn't been anywhere. So to think we were going to go on for a ride, and we were going to drive over to the dump and then come back the scenic route. So I thought, well, that's good. I'm going to take my little notebook and pencil, because you never know when you're going to see something you've got to write about. And so we'd been there and we'd done our business, and we're coming back through the rural part of the county. And first we find a donkey. We didn't find a donkey. The donkey was where it belonged in its field. But I like donkeys, so I was really happy that we could stop and look at a donkey. So then I was in good humor. I was thinking, oh, good, we're seeing good things, and you never know when you're going to see stuff you can write about. So then we came into town. We'd come in Marine Drive, and we're coming up Eldridge, and here's this little park on Eldridge, a little park with a playground. And it's astonishing when I think back on it now, what I saw. But as we drove past, there's this child standing at the entrance to the park, and that's what I'm going to read about, what I wrote about the child. And I'd been wondering for 3 weeks or so, how are children managing with this? What all do parents tell their children, and how are children going to understand that they can't go out and they can't play and they can't be around people, and they can't hug the grandparents and people and friends. And so when I saw this child, I saw a lot of things in a flash, and out came the notebook and the pencil. And this is the poem that I wrote. One child. Today they wrap tape around the playground, bar the passage up the ladder, down the slide, roll the swings and tie them where they can't be reached. A child watches, brushes her hair slowly from her face. One foot stirs the dust. The scuffed knees of her jeans show how she likes to climb. Yellow signs say, caution, closed, and to avoid potential contamination. Words she cannot read. The workers throw their shovels, hammers, tape into a pickup, brush wood chips from their hands, and drive away. She looks across the space where just last week she dashed hair flying with her friends. A frown creases her face. She searches for some sign, some place to make believe, to find new magic this slow morning, but no one is here to play. Thank you.
Wow. As a parent, I'm not a parent of a little tiny one anymore, but I try to imagine what it would have been like to be in this time with a little one, and going to all of the playgrounds and seeing them taped off and signs. And thank you, Linda. You captured that very well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we will go to the next person. Let's see, let me find her on my list here so I can invite her onto the screen. All right, our third reader is Chelsea McAvoy. Curious and restless from an early age, Chelsea has spent the past decade taking every opportunity she can to travel and explore, splitting time between Alaska, Washington, and abroad. When not traveling, she lives in Bellingham, where she works part-time as a mountain guide and enjoys the bike trails at Galbraith. Me too. She writes both fiction and nonfiction with a focus on landscape and nature writing, and she's pursuing a master's in creative writing at Cambridge. So welcome to the stage, and I can't wait to hear what you have to read for us, Chelsea.
Thank you so much. So as my bio said, I do quite a bit of traveling. So back in March, I was actually in India when the world started shutting down. I was at a yoga teacher training, had been traveling for several weeks. So it was a bit of an abrupt shift to come back to Bellingham on very short notice, and quite a lot of chaos ensued. So I wrote this piece back at the end of the March after I had been back in Bellingham for about a week. So it's called Home is a Yoga Mat. I'm nestled into a yoga retreat in India when the world begins shutting down. Coronavirus had just barely begun making its advance when the 30 of us arrived 10 days ago, but it creeps further into the world each day. As tales of toilet paper stockpiling filter through from family, we laughingly applaud the bum gun, ubiquitous on Indian toilets. No toilet paper? No problem. The outside world feels very far away, and our main concern is how long the tea time macaroons will last. So we go about our days, rising to sip sleepy chais and move our bodies together, feasting on beautiful food, petting the ginger cats that slink around the retreat. Evenings are spent swimming in the sea, and we grow more buoyant each day, lighter, closer. But by the end of the second week, there's lockdowns in London, lockdowns in the US. The situation is changing so quickly that our heads spin. Hours of peace are now bookended with scrolling news stories and fielding calls from family. We hunker down, more grim-faced than anyone at a yoga retreat should be. And then, one day, it reaches us. The airports cut flights, and we were told that India has announced its own lockdown, beginning in 48 hours. Our little bubble suddenly becomes a cage very far from home. Chaos ensues, and we scurry to call airlines and change flights. Chais are replaced with gin and tonics, and we suck them down as the Wi-Fi drops, calls are put on hold, and prices skyrocket. By the end, we are all exhausted, wrung out and scared, the journey home not even begun. But this is where yoga shines. This is what yoga is for, if you can merely get yourself on your mat. And the next morning, we do. We all move together one last time, tears running down our faces and hearts breaking wide open in the sweetest practice of our lives. That night, I stand alone on the beach as the waves curl blue with luminescence. Bittersweet goodbye. A week later, in my hometown, I unfurl my mat with the dawn and surrender into child's pose. Strangers walk by, keeping their prescribed 6 feet of distance. I'm alone, so very far from India and far from my yoga family. But as I rise to kneeling, snapping my eyes open to the sea, I smile. I'm home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really like how you transported us to a place there. So
Yes.
thank you very much. Well done. And we're glad you're home safe and sound. So
Thank you.
All right. Our next reader, let me find her on my little list. I appreciate everybody's patience. It takes a little bit of time to get everybody up onto the screen. So Suzanne Krog is a professor emerita who taught at Western Washington University from 1990 to 2011. Her field was education with a specialty in early childhood development and education. And although she continues to publish early childhood textbooks, her real enjoyment in retirement is learning to write poetry and finding topics from her life to write about that her sons and grandkids might not mind reading. So welcome to the stage, Suzanne. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. If you could say a few words, let me make sure that we can hear you.
Okay. Excuse me. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes,
Great.
ma'am. Okay, let's see. Let me just make myself go away, and the stage is yours.
I wrote this as a contribution to my writing group, and the writing group is a subgroup of the Western Washington University Retirement Association, otherwise called WURA. And I had been noticing all the various words that the various media were using to describe the pandemic. And somehow I got obsessed with these words and I started making a list. And then this list got longer and longer, and I finally decided I needed to write something about it. And so that's what this prose poem turned out to be. Excuse me. Whatever this pandemic might have wrought, aside from sickness, death, economic disarray, the most curious sign of its unwelcome presence has no heart-wrenching, fear-inducing, or painful characteristics. Instead, everywhere, we find symptoms of linguistic competition. Yes, really. What we have is a war between adjectives, or more accurately, a war between users of adjectives. It begins with two wraparound words, these times. But what times are these? What adjectives should fill in the blank? The answers to these questions are found in an ever-lengthening list. Unprecedented was introduced early on by NPR. These unprecedented times. Not to be outdone, other news media proposed unusual, turbulent, anxious, and confusing. Weeks wore on, and creative media professionals added trying, uncertain, challenging, difficult, and extraordinary. Still, the pandemic marched right on, refusing to leave, and journalists thought we needed vocabulary refreshment. Thus, we were given the gloomy, tough, dark, troubled, and dangerous. Not yet enough, apparently, because just the other day, the journalists at Some Good News, known by many as SGN, gifted us with bizarre. You know, I believe that just might say it all at last. And it comes from broadcasters who refuse to look at these times in any way but a positive one. And so the victory in the war between words goes to these bizarre times. Congratulations, and thanks to our cheerful friends at SGN.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I appreciate the all the words. So many words to describe. Oh yeah, so many to describe these times. So thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it. Okay, and our next presenter pardon me, next presenter. I was having a tough time finding you. There you are. Okay. S Nahani. S Nahani is an ardent believer in the power of expression to heal, connect, and transform. With training in social work and expressive arts therapy, Jay's business and practice of creative insights offers services in writing coaching, compassionate editing, embodied attunement, and group facilitation. Jay's, I want to just call you by your last name. Jay's poetry has appeared in Bellingham's Poem Booth and in many anthologies. So tonight she's here to share her piece with us. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And take it away.
Thank you, Claire. And thank you to the whole Chuckanut Writers Conference for this, and to the readers so far. I feel so moved and honored to be part of this. And as a writing coach and a facilitator, I ask participants two things. And if you're out there, you know what they are. And that's to show up and tune in. And so tonight, I just want to thank all of you for showing up and tuning in. And as we walk through these times, and harrowing is a word that keeps coming to me this week, as we've started school in Bellingham. As we move through these times, I find writing to be a way through. And as April was approaching the National Poetry Month, a friend who you'll hear from tonight, actually, in a couple moments, Rachel asked me to participate writing a poem a day, and I'd never done that. And I do find being accountable helpful. And so I agreed to do it. And then as April came, on April 1st, actually, a dear friend's brother died that day from COVID. And I wrote Rachel and I said, I'm struck by this, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to participate this month. And she wrote back and said, absolutely, and I'm sorry, and I understand. And I just want to let you know that sometimes poetry is what's helped me through the hardest times. And as a facilitator and a writing coach, I say that to other people, but I had to hear it for myself. And by the next morning, I was ready to see what would come and actually write a tribute about that passing for my college roommate. And day by day, a poem would come. And so I thank Rachel, and I thank this contest, like the submission, and I thank poetry for being a bridge for us. And whatever it is for each of us, I hope we can find our way through. Audre Lorde said, poetry lays the foundations for a future of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before. And in these tender and tenuous times, I guess more words about these times, I hope that each of us can find our way through. And as I mentioned, school started this week, and this poem that I wrote is about when school ended. It came to an abrupt end here and in different places all over March 13th. And right now I'm one of the many teachers. I feel like the teachers at our schools are superheroes, really, and not even at schools, but all the people doing essential work. So thank you for that. And I also feel like my kids are really my teachers. And so thank you to you both, Chloe and Max, and to all the kids who remind us every day about what it means to be in the moments. And so this poem is called Who Let the Frog In? And what you need to know about this poem is that at the time of writing, my daughter who's mentioned in the poem, was 7, and she just turned 8. And there are 2 items that are mentioned in the poem. One of them is this. Do you want to play? And in these times, I think play, however we can figure out playing. So there's that object, and then there's this one. And you'll understand more as you hear the poem. I'm going to put those down for now because my hands are jittery. Okay. Who let the frog in? My daughter digs through the art space I organized so diligently those first days when school closed. How hard I worked to exercise control over something. She is undoing my doing. I try not to break out in a sweat. She spots the baby book from grandma on a high shelf, doesn't recognize her own face. That can't be me, she says. How can that be you, I think? She makes a plan to save it for her own child, 20 or 30 years down the road, when we are all part of the history books. My daughter, as she's apt to do, suddenly changes her mind. Let's give it away to our friend's baby, she says now. And when I ask her which one, she rolls her eyes, sighs. Isn't it obvious? I envision a version of her as a teen, repeating those words, maybe, sprinkled with expletives and disdain, no doubt. I will be looking up to her then. She's already so tall. And I imagine my future escape plan, the need to self-quarantine, to regroup alone in a quiet room. She's got the plush toy now, the one that resembles a bug, all the rings of patterned fabric, antenna eyes crossed after years of being ignored. My daughter starts to take apart all the pieces, finds one has lost its squeak. The black and white pattern no longer moos, but the bird still tweets. Even the frog croaks. And she laughs then, mischief in her vibrant eyes. She will keep pushing and pushing, determined to trick us into thinking a frog is in the house, stuck inside with the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. That's such a sweet poem. So
Thank you.
that we appreciate your sharing it with us. And I'm glad that you followed your friends and your own advice and wrote and continued with your poetry. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. All right, let's see. And our next reader this evening is also, she appears at the open mic frequently. Katie Scott lives in a tiny, no pets allowed Washington apartment with her husband in a forest of potted plants. When she's not busy working at a coffee house or listening to murder podcasts, she's spending too much money on books, me too, and eating out. Thank you for joining us, Katie.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely honored to be here with so many other great writers. So this piece that I'm going to be reading is about my sister's bridal shower. And obviously, given everything, went completely differently than planned. So I've worked at a restaurant, been in the hospitality industry for years, and I had a whole menu planned out of all these things we were going to eat, this huge feast I was going to prepare. And then we couldn't have a bunch of people over. And so I decided I still wanted to eat all that great food that I had been looking forward to and planning on Pinterest for ever. And so I decided that I'm like, we're still going to do it. Even if it's just my mom, my sister, and I, we're still going to have that bridal shower feast. And so this piece is called Bridal Shower Feast. As I carry the plastic laundry basket into my mother's house, it rocks on my hip like a wayward pilgrim ship. In it, tomato, basil, prosciutto, mozzarella, a jar of pepper jelly that rolls drunkenly side to side, and a bottle of Martinelli's. When my sister and I were little, and even now when I reach behind my sidewalk shadows, we would pop a bottle open every New Year's and Christmas. The bubbles would crackle like golden wrapping paper, and we'd chink our glasses together like we were something special, somewhere special, doing stuff that mattered. 2 loaves of bread stand shoulder to shoulder against the basket's edge, and they're swaddled in dollar store kitchen towels. Unlike everyone else on Instagram, my bread skills have atrophied these past few months. I used to make this recipe every morning when my restaurant was open. I dump the flour into the mixer and stare out the front windows at the sleepy street, knowing it'd be packed with cars in a few hours. But when I folded the dough on my counter the night before, above the empty, worn streets at the feet of my apartment building, all I could think of was how odd it felt to have flour flake off my knuckles once again. My mom hugs me on the doorstep before I can tell her not to, and her dog is at my ankles, whining for attention because he hasn't seen me in weeks. As my mom picks through the baskets and chatters like the little backyard sparrows she loves to feed, I walk down the hall, peer into the living room, and see my sister. She's sitting on my couch. Even if I moved out 4 years prior, it will always be my couch. And after her wedding, later in the week, it will remain an empty companion to my mother's armchair until we come to visit. None of us know when that will be next. When I'd been this close to my wedding, every moment was a desperate forest fire of busyness, and my mouth was dry from the second I'd wake up. But here and now, my sister lounges limply, as if she'd been tranquilized or just given up completely. I can't blame her. She'd shed enough sweat when the swanky farm venue canceled, the pizza reception fell through, and the whole rest of her plans leaked through her fingers in steady drips off her engagement ring. She'd used up all her emotion too soon, and now there wasn't much left of anything at all about the backyard wedding around the corner, save a shrug and a detached laugh when I asked her what she wanted to eat. We decided to watch Bridesmaids, then Pride and Prejudice after, the one with Keira Knightley. And we paused the movie to talk about how strange it was to see so many bodies packed in a ballroom, to see smiles and chins, to see people. The still screen reminds us that we're hungry. After my mom unloads the laundry basket onto the counter, I grab out a cutting board, still stored where I remembered, and fish through the drawer for a serrated knife, no longer where I remembered. As I slice through the loaf and prepare the feast I'd planned for my sister's bridal shower, I think of how this is the last time I'll know my family this way. And I want to say a quick thank you to Sean Dwyer, who's the host of Village Books Open Mic, because he was the one that encouraged all of us in the open mic to submit our pieces to this. So if he hadn't encouraged me to do that, I wouldn't have submitted it to begin with. So thank you.
And he is in the house tonight. So Sean, we're looking at you. Thank you so much. Katie, I have to say, when I heard you read this piece in the open mic, it struck me. And then when I saw that you submitted it, I was so happy. This piece where you say the rest of her plans leaked through her fingers in steady drips off her engagement ring. Wow. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mom. She had a chance to tune in and see it a bit. So
good.
Yeah.
Hi, Katie's mom. All right. Thank you for sharing that, Katie. We appreciate it. And I hope we'll see you at the next open mic.
Thank you so
By
much.
the way, everybody, the open mic happens on the final Monday of every night, or the final Monday of every month at 7 p.m. right here on Crowdcast. So feel free to join us. Our next reader, let's see if I can find her in my list. There she is. I fear I'm going to mispronounce her last name because I did not confirm how to say it. So, Mel or Mel?
Mel.
Mel, thank you. Rachel Mel lives in Bellingham. She chairs the Sue C. Boynton Poetry Contest and volunteers with Poem Booth. Her poems can be found in the Crab Creek Review, Black Coffee Review, and Sweet Tree Review. So Rachel's going to share 2 poems with us here tonight that go together. So thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you. I was in the writing group in April once, or a poem a day, as Jay mentioned. We were in there together, and so I kept writing poems through April. And my grandmother, who was 96, I had been taking my son, who was 3, he turned 4, to see her every week. She had a stroke. At that time, it was a little more than 2 years ago. And when she had the stroke, she had limited mobility, and we started driving to Anacortes to see her every week. And then we went on vacation, and I said, well, we're going to be on vacation next week. We'll see you the following week. And when we got back, her assisted living facility was closed to guests, and we couldn't see her. And then in mid-April, she got pneumonia and died. And these are 2 poems. One of them I wrote the day before about what I thought would happen when I went to see her. And then I wasn't able to see her because they had to schedule visits out even for the compassionate care. And so the second one is about what my mom and I did. So this one is called Dying in the Time of COVID, and it's about what I thought would happen. Tomorrow, I will again get on Zoom, hold the camera towards my children, and let my children hold the chickens who are at that awkward age, not chicks, but adolescents with feathers coming in, but also still fluff as well, and show them to my grandma on a screen who is dying, not of this thing we're all scared of, but of being 96, fluid filling her lungs. Tomorrow, I will drive an hour. If I'm free of fever, I'll don a mask and suit, but I will be able to touch her hand one last time, if through gloves. Last night, we called her on Zoom, the whole gaggle of us. She kept asking where we were. She could not remember all of her children, but asked me to go upstairs so she could see my children sleep. I tried, but the lights were off. The screen was black. And then this is the one I wrote after that, because I was supposed to be there at noon, and then she died at 8 a.m. And this one is called Death in the Time of COVID. Because I could not hold the pale petal of her hand, I bought a purple rose and planted it in my mom's garden. Because I could not hug my mom, we sat in opposite corners of her living room, searching for photos of our dead on Ancestry.com, sharing our computer screens through Zoom. Because I'm crying, my 3-year-old asks why. When I say I miss my grandma, he says, but we can visit her grave. I hug his small body and hope he remembers. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. That's beautiful, and we're sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
We appreciate you sharing that. There are so many people who have experienced loss.
It's a tough time.
Yeah. So we appreciate your sharing that personal story. Okay. Our next presenter is a longtime friend of Village Books, I will say. We see him a lot around there. Let's see. Where are you? Where are you, Dick? Let me find you in my list. There are so many people tuning in right now that my list has gotten very long. And so, I will find you. There you are. Dick Little is a retired attorney and government lobbyist who's lived in Bellingham for 40 years. His writing has been published in the Seattle Times, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, in lots of things. His writing has appeared in lots of things. He's the author of 2 short story collections, Postcards from the Road and Jakey's Fork, A River's Journey, and also his novel, City Hall. So we are pleased to welcome you here tonight, Dick, and you have the stage.
Thanks, Claire, and good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Without an introduction, I'll just start right in. This piece is called Intermezzo. I love opera, the original multimedia event, costume actors, beautiful staging and sets, huge audiences, and of course, gorgeous music. They don't call it grand opera for nothing. It's timeless, literally. During these uncertain and tragic times, music is a palliative. Whether your tastes run to Lady Gaga or Tony Bennett, Beyonce or Beethoven, the Temptations or the Four Lads from Liverpool, music bypasses the brain and goes straight to the heart. These days, I binge watch opera. Family lore has it that my mother, then a music major at UCLA, would travel to Berkeley to visit my dad, a pre-law major living in a raucous fraternity. She convinced my father to grab 2 rugby-type brothers and drive across the Bay Bridge to the San Francisco Opera. As a boy, it was not uncommon for me to hear my dad whistling Un bel di vedremo before heading off to work. Opera was a staple in our house. And even before Pavarotti made Nessun Dorma his signature piece, it was my dad's favorite. When he passed away, I listened to it over and over and sobbed. My musical rescue these days has been the Metropolitan Opera's streaming video, 1 each night. Seattle Opera, Arte from Europe, and other YouTubes of iconic performers have also brought me comfort and hope. If your exposure to opera was Bugs Bunny and a buxom, horn-helmeted woman with the wascally wabbit warbling Figaro, 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 you started down the wrong path. Instead, consider one of the big 5, Madame Butterfly, Tosca, La Boheme, La Traviata, or Carmen. None of these have been out of the repertoire since they were composed 100 years ago, over 100 years ago. They leave you humming a theme as you can't get out of your head. Spoiler alert, there are no happy endings. Seppuku, TB, stabbing, Tosca jumping off the parapet into the Tiber. But don't let that put you off. The music is glorious, and a good cry is not bad. There is lighter fare, The Marriage of Figaro or The Weird Magic Flute. Want to get serious? Richard Wagner is the champ. Lohengrin, think Wedding March, or dive into the deep end and tackle the Ring of the Nibelungen, all 19 hours over 4 operas. Is it an acquired taste? So try acquiring it. Do sopranos warble? Only the bad ones. Correctly done, it's called vibrato. Many a good pop singer has mastered it. But whatever, hold music close, along with thoughts of loved ones and strangers in need. No less an authority than Igor Stravinsky improbably said, I haven't understood a bar of music in my life, but I have felt it. 2 tickets, virtual second balcony, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. I love that. So you have inspired me, because when I read this, I'm going to admit that Bugs Bunny, that Looney Tunes of Bugs Bunny doing opera is deeply ingrained, and I loved it. But I am willing to try others, and this inspires me to try to find some of these operas, because it seems like in this time that would be such a great way to feel something other than pandemic. So
I'll put in a plug, Claire, for the Pacific Northwest Opera down the road in Mount Vernon, Washington, formerly known as the Skagit Opera. I've had the pleasure of being in 3 of those as a cast member, not as a principal. And it's right down the road, and you will never regret having gone.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And so you sing opera. Do you sing?
I say yes.
Opera.
Now, on this broadcast, no.
No. I wouldn't do that to you. but I kind of detected that you sang opera. You do or you did?
With choral groups mainly, but also
Okay.
I've been fortunate enough to be in those operas down there.
Okay. Wow.
As a chorus member, not a principal.
You are a multifaceted man. So
Okay.
thank you so much for sharing your piece with us. Here we go. Okay. And it's only fitting that our next reader is going to follow Dick. Let's see. As the library director at Whatcom Community College, Linda Lambert enjoyed referencing the multi-volume shelf of Oxford English dictionaries. Now she has digital access, a useful resource for a writer who enjoys writing creative nonfiction, memoir, and occasionally poetry. So hopefully, very soon, we're going to see Linda Quimby Lambert. This one might take, oh, okay. We're going to see her any second. I just am sure of it. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right, take it away.
As you've just heard, my friend Dick binge watches opera. When he sent me his new manuscript, it inspired me to write something in response. It's called Distraction by Dictionary. I saw Dick sing in Mephistopheles, produced, as he mentioned, by Pacific Northwest Opera. I attended Samson, an oratorio performed by Opera Popolare at my church. I enjoyed both. But binge watching opera? Not me. My brand of COVID-19 entertainment is dictionary diving, a diversionary tactic wresting me from the persistence of pandemic news. One Christmas, my wife gave me a subscription to the online Oxford English Dictionary. Now she's sorry. If there's a simple definition, I dredge up way too much information. So here is the way too much information I found on these 2 words: binge and coronavirus. Before binge signaled the excessive drinking, it meant a servile bow or obeisance, and to soak a wooden vessel. Binge watching has been around since the late 1990s when boxed DVD sets arrived, followed in 2013 by stream shows like Netflix's House of Cards. Ree Pierce Grove, a lecturer at the Sorbonne and a PhD candidate at Columbia, claims that planned binge watching can be, quote, a healthy and calming escape. Sounds like perfect justification for daily opera consumption, and for me, a healthy and calming escape into the varied meanings of coronavirus, a word that permeates our everyday existence, messaging, danger, and death. We all know what a virus is, right? A tiny pathogen living within a host animal, beady-eyed little bats emerging from caves infecting humans who fly across continents comes to mind. Virus comes from Latin, accompanied by a string of meanings: poisonous secretion, venom, virulent, and human semen. That, plus pus, or other discharge produced by an ulcer or wound, precipitated my settling on this slightly nicer definition: any agent causing infection. The softer meanings, the early meanings of corona are charming. Flower garlands called chaplets, headbands known as fillets, crowns signaling sovereignty, and luminous halos. Ancient churches mounted circular chandeliers called crowns of light. Early monks displayed coronas, tonsures, a shaved part of their heads. Noah Webster called the upper surface of molars or grinders a corona, though my dentist friend Ray said he's never met a grinder named corona. Zoologists examine rotifers, microscopic critters with up to 5 eyes who have coronas, hair-like structures around their mouths. Botanists call anything growing on the head of the seed a corona. I feel a smiling familiarity with garlands, chandeliers, cornices, shaved clerics, and even five-eyed beings. I nod at dandelions and thistles, aware that their headdresses are called coronas. I take refuge in the word that catalyzed Dick's submission, intermezzo, and the Oxford English Dictionary's second definition of the word, an interval, an episode. I'm thankful for distraction by dictionary in this interval time of danger and death. I'm also thankful that Dick alerted me to this event, which I didn't know about, and very grateful that Village Books continues to support writers and literature and reading throughout this community. We're really lucky that it has been here for so long and continues its support. So thanks so much.
Wow. Thank you, Linda. I'll pay you later for that. So, just between us. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I love how that whole piece runs the gamut of so many different kinds of words from beautiful to gross. It was great. So thank you. We appreciate it.
You.
All right. Let's see. We appreciate your sharing that. Okay, here we go. All right. Our final reader this evening. Let me, again, scroll through my list. Here we go. J.L. Wright currently has 2 published poetry books, Unadoptable Joy and Homeless Joy. Her poems have appeared in Taj Mahal Review, GNU Journal, Solstice, and nearly a dozen anthologies. She has been an active member of Red Wheelbarrow Writers, Whatcom Peace and Justice Writers, and the Village Books Poetry Group. So she is going to close for us, although don't go away after JL is done reading. But we thought that this piece was fitting to be the final one for the evening, so take it away.
I'm very honored. Chose it to anchor this, and I now see that after I got to hear everybody's poems, how that fits together.
See, always thinking. All right, take it away.
So I've definitely been writing lots of COVID poems. I actually was a participant of C.J. Prince's Peace Poetry Month back in February, and wrote poems every day of February and continued it into March, and then continued that into NaPoWriMo in April, and I couldn't stop. So I found the thinkwritten.com 101 poetry and prose prompts, and I kept writing. So this one is prompt number 47. It's called Overgrown. Our lives can become overgrown with energy drainers, a noisy dryer, a latch that doesn't catch, a snag in a sweater. Just want to pull. Worry and fear is like kudzu, climbing, coiling, noxious. A case of the flu becomes a pandemic, a peaceful march, a riotous mob. We live and grow with purpose, sometimes unclear or unknown. A simple smile can uplift. A calm voice soothe a child's fear. A warm hand comfort an aging animal. During this time of victory gardens and sourdough starts, let us feed our purpose, advocate for others, be strong when we can, and keep pulling the weeds.
Thank you. Yep. That's all we can do is keep pulling the weeds, right? So
Keep pulling the weeds.
Thank you so much. All right, before everybody goes, let's see, I'm going to send you back and we're going to bring Katie back up to the screen. Let's see if I can find her. There she is. Because we just want to say a big thank you to everybody, but I don't want to do it till she is with me.
Hello.
Hi.
Wow.
Wasn't that great?
Yes, I just was sitting here weeping and laughing, and I was just totally moved by the whole thing. Thank you, everyone. Wow.
Yep,
I wish you could hear the round of applause.
I know. I love how it was just such the gamut of it was quite a wonderful variety of pieces and feelings and formats and all of it. So we appreciate everyone who participated in this. We hope that you'll consider, if you haven't already, participating in some of the other projects that are part of the People's Perspectives.
I dropped the link into the chat box. So if you want to check it out, that's the link to the People's Perspectives COVID-19 in Whatcom County website. And there are all sorts of projects and all sorts of genres. So I know the Whatcom Museum is doing a Story Dome project for oral storytelling. If you create visual art or you make photographs, there are ways for you to submit other kinds of art to that project as well.
Yep, and I think that ultimately the long-term goal is that one day we'll have an exhibit kind of everything, sort of all in one place, that we can gather when we're allowed to do that. And
but you know, one of the things I loved was you all are still writing together. There were so many writers who wrote pieces for this reading who had been encouraging one another to keep on writing.
The Chanticleer conference is happening right now. There is so much happening in this county for writers, and I can't wait for our writing groups to be able to meet back at Village Books again. But in the meantime, they're still going strong, and it just warms my heart. And I know that we have representatives in the audience from the Whatcom Community Library System, Mary Vermillion and Christine Perkins, to name a couple. We are so grateful to the Whatcom Community Library System, Whatcom County Library System, for this project was really their brainchild, this whole county-wide. And the Bellingham Public Library, Christine Perkins says, yes, and the Bellingham Public Library. Anyway, yes, thank you in the chat for reminding me of everybody that I need to thank, because there's a lot. But it truly has been a community-wide effort and project, and it makes me appreciate our little corner of the country very much. So we appreciate everyone being here tonight. Katie, do you have any last words?
Thank you, Claire, for hosting. Wonderful.
Oh, it was fun.
Appreciate it.
It was fun. All right. Hopefully we'll see you see everybody here on more of our events on Crowdcast. And don't forget to click that green link to check out the WAMEM workshops that are happening the month of September. There's still 2 more, I think, left. So, because I think one started on never mind. Anyway, there's still ones you can sign up for.
Great.
All right. So
thank you.
I think we're going to say over and out, and thank you all.